Hello, everybody, and welcome to the February 10th episode of Trips and Traps. Richard Migliore, Andy Serling.
There's some different races to look at. An interesting stake. I like the 3-year-old Ella Reed, but there were some other horses that ran well in there.
Well, I think it's important to talk about Ella Reed. It was the big race of the week, and I think it is an interesting race to discuss, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. But also, we had a strange track last week. Watching the replays, I was out of town, but I was watching them, and I realized that Thursday and Friday, the second and third, it felt like the rail wasn't the place to be. And then Saturday and parts of Sunday, the rail was very strong, so the track changed. So I wanted to start off by showing one race, and this is the 7th from February 3rd, where I thought a horse had a bit of a trip, but also was badly affected by being on what I think wasn't a good rail. And this is the 2 Madison Blues, who is a closer, breaks a little bit slowly, no big deal. I can't blame the rider for being inside. The rail's been so good so often, the riders have been impatient to stay there. When it suddenly gets not the place to be, it takes a lot, even for, I think, a handicapper to pick on it, Richie, and I know that it's probably difficult for riders.
Well, yeah, and I think sometimes even if you pick up on it, you're on a closer and you've got a lot of traffic to your outside, and you're trying to just give yourself every chance and not lose too much ground. And at this point, what could Cornelio Velasquez do to get in the clear? I don't really see many breaks.
I don't disagree. It's a tough spot. Could he have tried to angle out here? Because at this point, I think he could have. But on the other hand, where's he angling out to? The 5 path?
You're going to angle out 5 wide. And again, you know, even if you've picked up on the rails dead, you've got to weigh out. Is it better to lose more ground? Or maybe you can work your way out later, which obviously you'll see he doesn't get that opportunity.
Yeah, well, what happens is the horse in the green lays on him, and at that point, he's got no options. And then the 3, who's the speed on the bad rail, she backs up completely in her face. And Madison Blues, who may well have won this race, looks like she didn't do any running, and I think she was a bad victim of the trip. Not Cornelio's fault.
Again, not blaming Cornelio, but I also think when you saw the horse back up in his face and he had no place going to get steady, he basically put up the white flag. The race is over. I've been compromised. There'll be another day.
Right, I agree. And he wasn't getting anything at that point, so there's no reason to beat up on her. Madison Blues, an interesting one to follow in a similar spot going forward. Now we'll turn attention to Saturday, February 4th, a day the rail was good. And I think it's important because we want to talk about a maiden race won very, 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 very easily by Full House. But the 2-horse Desirous doesn't get a good break. The 7-horse who finishes 3rd is Oro Verde. Now, Desirous will finish 2nd. But no question the break was bad for the 2. But after that, Desirous just stays along the inside until later stages, whereas Oro Verde chases very wide the whole way. And I think in some ways, Oro Verde had the worst trip because of how compromised he was, or she was, by the racetrack.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think Oro Verde, it would have been a lot closer for 2nd. Let's put it that way. And after the poor start, which I think was a blessing in disguise for Desirous with Kendrick Carmouche, who's been riding this inner track like he owns the joint, by
Amazing,
the way.
I agree.
I think because the winner was so much the best, if she had broken better, he might have been in a position to go after her early and compromise his opportunity for 2nd. When you have a runaway winner like that, sometimes you just got to say, well, what can I do to be 2nd or get my best placing?
And I think that's exactly what Kendrick did, and it worked out perfectly for him. And the 2 stories, the riding this winter, because the Ortizes haven't been here that much. Would have been suspensions, cancellations, out of town, or really the return of Rajiv Mirage, who wins the race, and Kendrick Carmouche's riding. And that's not to say other guys haven't ridden well, and certainly there has been good riding, but these guys have been terrific day in and day out. Kendrick is waiting for his spot, and, you know, in some ways it's not dissimilar to the last race, but he's waiting. Now he senses the 7 coming, and now he has to go outside. But at all points in the race, the 7, Oro Verde, is wide. You see him in the blue silks, or her in the blue silks, and Desirous ends up on the inside until the late stages.
Yeah, and what do I always talk about? If you're going to be wide on one turn, you've got to save all the ground on the other turn, and Oro Verde never had that opportunity. She was extremely wide on both turns. And just quickly getting back to Rajiv Mirage, it's so hard to be off as long as he is and come back and find your game. He found it very quickly, and I'm really proud of the way he's riding.
No, I agree. He's been a great story, and I actually wish it would get more attention because the guy was out for almost a year and a half. It took him a couple of weeks to get his legs under him, and he's having as good a winter. I mean, I don't think he could have imagined he would have had as good a winter as he's had.
No, and like you said, very quickly, within a few weeks, he found his timing, he found his legs, and in a game where guys have layoffs, jockeys have layoffs because of self-inflicted things or self-imposed problems. Here's a guy who got hurt really badly and fought tooth and nail to get back, and that should make more headlines.
No, I agree. It's a great story. One more thing to add in the race. People might look and say, well, the winner won by almost 14. The second horse was second by almost 6. You're telling us about a horse that lost by 20 lengths, ran well in Overbury? Biased racetracks, and this was a gold rail, will exaggerate performances because a horse on the rail will run much better than it's necessarily capable of running because of the rail, whereas a horse like Oro Verde is traveling 3-4 wide the whole way, is going to run much worse. So we're not saying Oro Verde would have won, but it would have been a lot closer, maybe 5 or 6 lengths, had the track been fairer.
Well, I think what we're pointing out is next time, most likely, they're going to wind up in the same race. Who do you want out of the race? I honestly think I want the third place finisher.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. If Desirous went off at 3-2 and the third place horse was 9-2, I know where my money's going. At the same price, it's a bit of a different question, but you know you're getting a better price on Oro Verde. Now we're going to talk about the Withers, the 8th race from Saturday, February 4th, and Ella Reeb is the star of the show. We want to talk about True Timber, who did stumble badly at the start, and Kendrick did a great job using the rail position after that to secure the inside lead. But I also want to talk about the eventual third finisher, J-Boy's Echo, for Dale Romans, who shipped up and had not run since Delta in November. I think J-Boy's Echo ran very, very well in this race to finish third, almost getting second. And once again, the rail and Kendrick's ride helped True Timber. But Ella Reeb, which is the star of the show.
Well, Ella Reeb answered a lot of questions for me. I didn't know what to make of his Jerome. You know, he skipped along on the lead on a muddy track. This time, he showed the ability to rate and did it very kindly. He waited on Trevor McCarthy's cues. Anytime a horse waits on the rider's cues, they're going to overachieve. They're going to make the most of their abilities. And then he showed that turn of foot that we talk about usually with turf horses. He kind of put the race away in a twinkling, and I feel won with something left. I was much more impressed with him out of this race than I was the Jerome.
I couldn't possibly agree more with you. And the Jerome was a wet track, too. Now, what he shows in the Jerome is he can run fast early and still finish at the end.
Sure.
And wet track or not, that's a very important quality he has. In this race, yes, he had a clear trip stalking, but this isn't Belmont Park. This is the inner track on a day the rail was very good, and the rail, of course, helps True Timber. He is stalking 3 wide the whole way. All the way on the outside is J-Boy's Echo, who's 4 wide the whole way and ran very well, but he was 1 pass wider than Ella Reeb, and Ella Reeb beat him by almost 5 lengths. This was a very dominating performance by Ella Reeb, and I think it bodes well for his future.
Well, I do too, and watching Trevor McCarthy's handling of him, I don't know that he was sure exactly how good he was in the Jerome. I think he learned a lot about him because he rode him with a lot more confidence. He didn't really, I mean, he'd get after him here to do what he had to do, but then he kind of wrapped up on him late. I think the third place finisher is very good, and I think he's going to improve. J-Boy's Echo, he's green. He ran in spots I thought he was wide. He's going to jump back to his left lead, and he's still finishing. I think this horse is a horse that's got a lot of forward movement in him.
I agree with you completely. And you'll see that with Dale Romans, who, you know, hopefully he'll get his chance to get himself together and maybe be a better horse later. You know, whether or not Ella Reeb ends up being a major Derby contender, we'll see. At this point, who's so much better than him, especially, and I know they're saying Classic Empire had an excuse, but after his performance, he still has to come back and show he was the horse that won the juvenile. This thing is wide open, and Ella Reeb's name is right there in the pack.
Yeah, there were a lot of things I didn't like about Classic Empire. You know, the way he washed out going to the gate. You know, he did show what he
they're
did.
They're claiming a foot bruise and an abscess that popped a few days
well, that
later.
would make sense because a horse, you know, that's something that won't show up, and a horse can't talk to the trainer and say, hey, you know, my foot's bothering me. So they show it in other signs. They just don't act properly. But quickly about True Timber. Stumbles pretty badly. You know, not the worst you've seen, but pretty badly. Kendrick Carmouche's decisiveness. And that's why he's ridden this track so good. Even if he does something that doesn't work out, he's taken the bull by the horns, and the inner track is more than any other racetrack we have in New York, a track you want to do that with.
I agree. And he took advantage of the fact that Jamie's Angel finished last at almost 80-1. The rider didn't show any sense of urgency to go to the fence. And on this racetrack, when the rail is good, you got to have some urgency to get to the fence.
Yeah, no doubt. It's the shortest way home, and if it's the fastest path, you're gonna get more out of your horse that way.
Yeah, I think we saw some good stuff in just a few races. Anyway, we can always use your help. It's Trips and Traps at NYRAinc.com.